When he says loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul, this is the law of unconditional love. The law of unconditional love. And when he talks about loving your neighbor as you love yourself, this is the law of community love. He gave us that command. And now the question is this original that Jesus gave us? I mean, where did he get this law? Is this something that is unique to us just as Christians? There's no doubt that love is the determining standard of all of our Christianity and the Christian tradition with which we hold. And love for our fellow man is indeed our standard. His banner over us is love. It's love. But Christians did not invent the spiritual imperative to love. I want you to understand that. God demanded that out of the Hebrew people. Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 18. It says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Leviticus chapter 19 verse 34 says this, the stranger who lives with you shall be unto you as one born unto you among you, and you shall love him as yourself. He told us not only to love our neighbor, he said love the stranger as you love yourself. And have you ever noticed Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 5? Listen to it. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul and with all thy might. Sound familiar? Jesus, when he gave us the great commandments, the great two, he was actually quoting from the Old Testament. That's why unless you understand the old, you won't really understand the new. So the message seems clear here to me that the law is not about law at all. It's about love. The law is not about law, it is about love. I mean, if I gave you an assignment, and just say, I know a lot of you all have been in church a long time, you've heard a lot of wonderful messages. If I gave you an assignment and just told you to write down the titles of 3 sermons over the course of your life that have changed your life, just try to take time to do that right now. Write down the title of 3 sermons that have changed your life. Whether I gave them, whether you heard it from somebody else, whatever, just write down the title of 3 sermons that have changed your life. Okay, time's up. Now, here's the next assignment. Write down the names of 3 people who have impacted or changed your life. Parents, teachers, preachers, friends, coach. Now, which one was easier? The people. Because we will remember the people even when we don't remember the message. And I can't tell you the number of times when I was there when a person lost a loved one, and I'm there to pray with a family that is distraught because the mama has just died, the dad had just died, the brother, the sister, the son, the daughter just died. And I'm there, and I'm speaking words of comfort. But you know what? Down the road, months after that, if I were to ask that person what I said to them during their time of grief, they don't remember what I said, but they never forget that I was there. You don't always remember the message, but you'll never forget the person. That's why Jesus said, I am the truth. The truth is not a message, the truth is a person. I am the way. The way is not a navigational system, the way is a person. I am the life. The life is not a philosophy, the life is a person. I am the life. When he gave us, I am the bread of heaven. It's not what you eat, it's who you are. I am this. And so he connected us with something so strong. And this is why he's saying this thing is all about love with relationship, loving God and loving your neighbor. He said, I'll sum it up. Somebody came to Rabbi Hillel, one of the most distinguished Jewish rabbis, and he said, I will become your student if you can explain to me your religion while standing on one leg. And Rabbi Hillel said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And he said, the rest is commentary. The whole essence of the law is about relationships. Not about do's and don'ts, just a relationship with God going vertically upward, and your relationship with man going outward, horizontally. And when you get up and out, you find the way of the cross. It is vertically loving God first, because until you love God, you don't even know how to love yourself. And once you then become okay with who you are, then now the love can be spread out to others, and God can revolutionize your life in an incredible way. And so I just wish that we could understand the importance of the reality of God's great law. Law helps us to understand how to love God, because if you grow up in a household where you have never seen love properly demonstrated for you, you don't really know how to love. I feel so sorry for people who are in relationship with somebody who didn't grow up in a loving home, because they're in relationship with somebody who doesn't know how to love. And they're doing crazy kind of stuff, and you can't understand it because you didn't grow up treating people like that. And how can you do that and roll over and go to sleep and not even be bothered by it? How can you live like that when you didn't grow up like that? They need law to teach them how to love if they didn't see it modeled for them. This thing is all about the presence of the person. That's why you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart. Listen, the presence of God, the law was embodied in the Ark of the Covenant, which represented the very presence of God himself. And if you ever get God's presence, you don't need law, because his very presence will stop you. This thing is really about a love affair with life. It's not about a bunch of do's and don'ts. It's not about restriction. It is a guide to a greater good, a basic good. This is the law of love that is a fundamental of all of life. It's not about behaviors that are required by the commandments that count. It is the intention of the commandments that count. And the whole intention of it is to bring us closer to God. That every step I take, I want to take in a direction that brings me closer to God. To keep any of the commandments and then to forget God's love for us, or to forget our love for God, is not to keep the commandments at all. This is why the Bible says in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 6, it says, the letter of the law kills, but the Spirit gives life. T.S. Eliot put it this way, that the worst treason is to do the right thing for the wrong reason. Have you ever met anybody who does the right thing but for the wrong reason? People that do something good but just to get your attention, just to win favor in a certain other area. They had ulterior motives. That's the worst treason, is to do the right thing for the wrong reason. Doing the right thing for the wrong reason. Let me just tell you that the commandments don't measure our love for God. It only gives substance to it. It grounds it, and then it demonstrates our desire to make it real. Think of it this way: the commandments as we know them is simply guidelines meant to show us how to keep the greatest commandment of all, which is to love God. And we don't really need any of the other ones if we're able to just sense his presence, just sense his presence. That in him I live and I move and I have my being. So I realize that my purpose of every step is just to try to take me closer to God. It is imperative that we grow in our love for God, because that is connected to our being able to love ourselves. You see, we are made in his image. And so when we learn to love God, we can also learn to love his image, which is ourselves. We are made in his image. We're made in his image. To love our neighbor as ourselves is to become a new kind of people. This is a godly community of love. This is a holy nation indeed. See, the reason that the second great commandment is so important is because we see, hear this carefully, we see in others what we fear in ourselves. We see in others what we fear in ourselves. So to love our neighbor as we love ourselves means that we also have to accept in ourselves what it is that we don't like, or what it is that we don't value, or what it is that we fear about our own self. The second great commandment is a warning to all of us, because we hate what we really can't stand in ourselves. We hate that in others. We hate in others what we cannot stand in ourselves. And we reject in others what we fear in ourselves. We reject it in others. So only by learning to love yourself, and by accepting all of your weaknesses, and by trusting that the God who loves us will accept the other part of us too, can we really possibly love and accept the other. We can never really love what we reject in ourselves. You see, I can only admit my own limitation. When I'm able to admit my own limitations, I can then accept the limitations of others.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.